one of the best reasons to use a decision tree is that decision trees are visual. They have a really nice visual form. And scikit-learn lets us plot trees with this plot tree function. So we can see what the tree looks like. And to plot the tree, what we'll do is we'll do plot tree, and we will pass in the classifier in its trained state, and that is already enough to print the tree. Now let me do a few things to make this a little bit nicer. So the first thing I want to do is let me import matplotlib, and this way I'll be able to do plot.show in order to suppress that output. Now, we have a little issue here, which that by default, it prints this really small. So we can get around this by doing plt.figure and specifying that the fig size ought to be something different, maybe something like 4 by 4. This is in inches. And set the DPI a little higher resolution, DPI equals 300. That's print quality. And maybe that will let us see it a little bit more. So that's a bit better. Now, there's a few other things I can do, which is here, it's fine, but wouldn't it be nice if instead of saying something generic like X12, it actually had the name of the 12th feature? Well, that's the reason that I saved these feature names. So in plot tree, let me pass that feature names should be the feature names. And that's a bit better. Now I can see that it's telling me to split first on whatever proline is. I'm assuming that is some sort of chemical that's part of the wine. And that should be my first split according to the tree. It's worth mentioning that scikit-learn trees left is true. So when this condition is true, when the observation's particular value of proline is less than 755, it should go to the left. So that's how we read that. Now, another thing we can do, which we notice is here, it doesn't actually tell us what class this is at the end. Well, I can actually pass in a list of class names. And this was something I got earlier as well. When I got the data, it was called target names. So now at each leaf of the tree, we can see what class is predicted. Now in this case, the classes are just labeled class 0, class 1, class 2, but they're representing 3 different cultivars of wine. Okay, and one more thing we can do to make this even nicer is we can look at this filled option. And what this does is it actually colors it according to the purity at each split, according to what class it would be there. So looking at this, we can see that at the beginning, at the first split, there's a slight balance towards green, which is class 1. So that is the one that it thinks before it does a split. After the first split, the left-hand side, the true side, is green. The right-hand side is orange, which goes to class 0, etc. And the darker the color, the higher the intensity. And so now I can explain a prediction. If you have any particular prediction, I can tell it to go left or right based on proline. Why did I go left? Well, I went left because that's the particular value. So I can explain very easily. So to the left, if my proline was 600, I'd go to the left. If my color intensity was 5, I'd go to the right, and it would predict class 2. And I can very easily explain that prediction in the same way I just talked through it. And that's about it for decision trees. Obviously, there's more you can do. You can look into some hyperparameter tuning. There's a few options of parameters to tune. One is the depth of the tree, which will just force the tree not to go too deep, and that will avoid overfitting to some degree. Another thing you can do is you can look at something called cost complexity path, CCP, and you can see you can generate a bunch of subtrees according to adding some penalty for making splits. So what this will do is it will allow you to prune, but not do something heavy-handed like, say, cut off everything that's more than depth 3. So this is a more data-driven approach to simplifying your tree to eliminating some overfitting. But before I end, I want to talk about one problem with trees. And if you recall, when I made the data set here, I did not specify a random seed. The reason for that was I wanted to restart and run all, get a different seed, and I wanted to show you something that happens with the tree. So stare at this tree for a second, kind of commit it to your memory, and let's go ahead and restart and run all. At very least, let's observe that the first split is made on ProLine, and the second 2 splits are both made on color intensity. So with a different split, looks like this time around it's splitting on, and I'm not sure why the resolution just went so much lower, but it's splitting on color intensity, and unfortunately something I cannot read, it's still doing the first split on ProLine. Okay, now the tree looks different though. Either way, let's run it again and see where the splits go. Okay, this time around it's cutting on ProLine first, but neither of the second 2 splits are done on intensity. Now let's run it again. Looks like it's still doing ProLine, but these second splits are different. And you can see every single time you run this, your tree will look a little bit different. Here's an example. It's not even splitting on ProLine first. It's splitting on color intensity. So this is referred to as the instability of trees. And the idea is that trees change a lot depending on exactly what your data set looks like. They're very sensitive to the data changing, even small data changes. And the only data changes here really are that we have slightly different tests and train sets, but we get very different looking trees out of it. And the way we're going to solve this eventually is we're going to do something called a random forest, where we're going to take a bunch of trees. We're actually going to take one training set, generate a whole bunch of trees, and we're going to have each of them vote on what classification ought to have been made. And that's how we'll get around this instability issue. All right, that's all I have on trees. Thank you.